I'm Ryan, and welcome back to Englebrook Independent News. Tonight we're going to be looking at Iran. Now, as many of you know, there was recently protests in Iran nationwide that rocked the entire country. They were setting buildings on fire, attacking Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps buildings. There was quite a bit of relentless protesting, even in the face of the security forces. Now, a lot of those people have died. Estimates range from between 5 to 20,000, and it's probably not 20,000, but it is most likely over 5,000 people. And these would be people that were shot dead in the streets by security forces just for protesting. But we got to go back for a little bit here. Uh, there have been protests in Iran every few years for the past decade or so. Sometimes it's economic, sometimes it's civil liberties, sometimes it's just policies of the government themselves. This one is pretty much all of that. You have the death of a woman who was in custody a few years ago. Um, she was arrested by the police because she apparently was not wearing her hijab, or the scarf covering her hair correctly, and she died in police custody. There was no reason why that should have happened, and the people were rightfully angry and they protested against it. Then there's been the water shortage in Tehran and in other cities in Iran where they don't have enough clean water to sustain their populations. And this is just mismanagement by the government. And then beyond that, their economy has almost entirely collapsed. Just recently, what sparked off the latest set of protests was the rial, their currency in Iran, reached new lows. So with the hyperinflation that they already have, now they're facing even further devaluation of their currency. It's understandable why these people were so upset and why they blamed the Ayatollah. Now, the Ayatollah and the IRGC, uh, they took the path that this was actually foreign intervention, that the only reason for these protests was because they had been, I don't know, not paid for, but instigated by the United States and by Israel. Now, I'm sure the United States and Israel have, in some ways, helped these protests to happen, given some support in one way or another, whether that might be satellite phones or receivers for the Starlink internet systems. For the most part, this was a homegrown grassroots protest that stems from the poor living conditions that they have, and the poor policies and the corruption that affects the Iranian government. The Ayatollah's response was uh, typical: brutal crackdown, arrest as many people as you can, kill people in the streets, and torture those that you've arrested. So there's been, and this crackdown was particularly brutal, especially because it wasn't just Tehran or the major cities. These protests were happening throughout the entire country. It really made it seem that the Ayatollah's hold on the government may finally come to an end. During these protests, the Trump administration had said, or Trump himself said, if the regime executes people for protesting, the United States will act. And then he had that tweet or that post on Truth Social, whatever it was, that help is on the way. Well, help was on the way, kind of. A carrier strike force, or strike team, strike force, whatever it is. It's an aircraft carrier with a bunch of other ships, very powerful weaponry. That was sent over to get into position within, I don't know what words I want to say here, uh, within striking distance of major Iranian targets. Trump pulled back on that, though. I don't think he tacoed. What happened, or I should say, what analysts have been saying, that there's evidence to show that Trump was pressured by the Israelis to hold back on the attacks. The reason why this is supposedly said to have happened is that the Israelis needed more time to rearm their missile defenses because they're expecting that in the case of an airstrike by the United States, that Iran would retaliate against them as well. And they wanted to make sure that their citizens were going to be safe. Makes sense. Apparently, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and a few other countries in that area, some regional players, also requested that the strikes not happen at that time, but probably for very different reasons. Now, though, it seems that the strikes are going to finally happen. These will be strikes against the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps buildings, barracks, supply depots, their weapons, vehicles, whatever could be used to stop the Iranian people from rising up and starting a new revolution. There are a few problems with this, though. The first is that we don't know how the Iranians would manage this. They don't have weapons. They're not allowed to own weapons. So the few weapons that have been smuggled in are not going to be very effective against a well-armed Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Second, if the Ayatollah does fall, they don't really have a replacement for him. Now, the former, or I should say, he calls himself the still current crown prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi. He has been very much involved in these protests, and he has been encouraging the protests from his exile. If he does show up to Iran, and if the Ayatollah, let's say, is captured or flees, if the crown prince shows up to Iran, there's no certainty that he's going to be able to form an intermediary government before any kind of democratic elections or constitutional convention. Now, he says that he would like for Iran to be a constitutional monarchy in the style of Britain, or some of the other European nations, where the royal family has ceremonial duties but doesn't run the government. Some people have cast doubt on his the veracity of these claims, or how genuine he is about this. I don't think, though, that having been exiled for so many years since 1979, that he has any real base of power to call on to become a strongman of this country. Furthermore, I think if weapons are smuggled into Iran and the citizens have some power over uh, their lives and who rules them, I don't know that they would easily take that they would take that lying down. So to me, that seems like a long shot of Reza coming in and becoming the next dictator or the next Shah um, with full power rather than just ceremonial duties. So we're just kind of waiting to see what happens now. The US fleet is in position, they're ready to go. The Iranians are apparently preparing, they're expecting an attack of some kind. The Israelis have apparently prepared as well, though they do not seem to be part of any strike against Iran. And we have a populace that has no weapons and no real way to form a government if the Shah or if the Ayatollah is taken out or flees. So this is not ideal. But again, I guess revolutions don't happen the ways that you want them to, and they are messy and bloody. Um, but it looks very likely that the U.S. is going to finally commit to airstrikes, and that somehow, one way or another, arms are going to have to be given to the Iranian populace. If enough arms and weapons can be given to them, then they definitely have a chance of overthrowing the current regime, particularly with defections, as we saw with police and some of the regular army officers and soldiers. Still, again, IRGC, we're not getting many defections from them, mostly because they've committed so many crimes against their own people that it's going to be really hard to convince those people to let you be a part of their new society. So they're probably going to fight to the end, which who knows how long that will take and what that will even look like. But in any case, it's a big question mark. What do we do, or what does anyone do if the Ayatollah is taken out, if the IRGC is overrun by the population? And then furthermore, are there going to be any factions that start fighting thereafter? There are so many times that a civil war breaks out after a revolution because during the revolution, sides that normally would not work together came together to defeat a common enemy, but then once that common enemy is gone, now they have an enemy with each other. This is it's in with the media blackout from Iran, them cutting off the TV, not TV, internet and the phones. It's really hard to tell what's going on there, and it's also really hard to tell what the population is really thinking or feeling. Not that Iran was a perfectly secluded government for the past 50 years, but they're not that friendly to outsiders, letting them know, or I should say, maybe they don't even want to know, or anyone in Iran to know what other Iranians think. So to try to get a gauge on who really has popularity and what the public is really leaning to, it's anyone's guess. There's obviously a couple of options that are most likely, but we don't have any way of confirming this. So here we sit on the eve of perhaps another 12-day war with Iran, possibly longer, uh, waiting to see if a revolution starts. This is If the Ayatollah could be removed from power, I think that would be a good thing for the Iranian people, especially if they could rally around the crown prince to form an interim government and then proceed on to democratic elections and then a constitutional convention or write up a constitution and approve it, whatever, however they want to do it. So this is a really key moment. This could be amazing for the Iranian people, or this could be an incredible disaster. We're just going to have to wait and see. Thanks for joining us again at Englebrook News. Uh, you know the drill. Don't forget to subscribe.